You're watching News Mongolia on MNB World. I'm your host, Susanna Oktay. Good evening. For our top stories, Selenge province reached 94% of its COVID-19 vaccination target. Ulaanbaatar's public service offices will now open at 8 a.m. International Museum Day 2021 celebrated online. For other news, stay tuned. The Ministry of Health reported that 349 new COVID-19 cases were confirmed nationwide in the past 24 hours and 7 more people have died.
As of today, 349 new cases were confirmed after 7,791 people got tested nationwide, which brings the total number of COVID-19 cases in Mongolia to 49,524. 877 more patients have recovered, 588 patients of whom were being treated at hospitals and 281 patients being treated at home. 7 more people between the ages of 51 to 94 died due to coronavirus implications within the past 24 hours, and the death toll is now 221. Of today's new cases, 343 are cases of domestic transmission and 6 were acquired from hospitals. 318 cases were confirmed in Ulaanbaatar and 25 were confirmed in the provinces. Among the 3,870 COVID-19 patients being treated at hospitals, 48.6% are showing mild symptoms of illness and 104 are in critical condition. Additionally, 2,691 patients are being treated at home. Health officials warned the people not to relax as the number of cases is decreasing and stated that the risk of getting exposed to the virus is still high.
May 18th is International Museum Day. Since the start of the pandemic, museums in Ulaanbaatar have been rapidly shifting to creating digital exhibitions and tours to reach wider audiences. This year, Museum Day is being celebrated with various online events. The Fine Arts Ulaanbaatar Museum is offering a virtual look at its rare collection in an exhibition titled Buddha Shakyamuni in Religious Art.
This year, International Museum Day is being celebrated under the theme The Future of Museums, Recover and Reimagine, highlighting the new digital era museums are entering. Adapting to current lifestyles and digital trends, museums in Mongolia are developing their social media presence and creating virtual outreach programs. To commemorate Museum Day, the Fine Arts Ulaanbaatar Museum is presenting Buddha Shakyamuni in Religious Art online for the public.
Ulaanbaatar Fine Arts Museum faced several closures during the pandemic, and we had to adapt to the new situation and implement new changes to the way we operate. So one of those things is reflected in this exhibition, which we are opening in this hybrid format. So during this week, we are opening it as an online exhibition, and when public and cultural institutions reopen, the public can visit this exhibition in person.
The exhibition includes tanka paintings, silk applique, and sculptures from the 17th through 20th centuries, all depicting Buddha and subjects related to his life and teachings. Most of the works in this exhibition are being presented to the public for the first time. The museum will welcome visitors when the state of emergency is lifted. Until then, the team is preparing to give visitors an advanced museum experience with AR and VR technologies.
Vaccination at the Ulaanbaatar border crossing in Selenge province is intensifying. The province's general hospitals have managed to cover 94% of the region's vaccination target.
The Ulaanbaatar border crossing operates 24 hours a day. On average, 1,500 to 2,000 passengers and 500 to 700 vehicles pass through the port daily. During peak season in June through August, 2,500 to 3,000 passengers and 800 to 1,000 vehicles pass through the port daily. Two general hospitals in Selenge province and Mandasum provide medical care and services to province residents. So far, 94.2% of the province's target group for vaccination has received their first dose of vaccine, while 15,000 people have received their second dose of a vaccine.
As the population in Ulaanbaatar, Mandal and Altınboluk SUMs are relatively high, we have deployed staff and doctors from other SUMs. First shots were administered to 15,000 people in just 4 days. Second doses are being administered in May. Currently, we have administered a total of 57,000 COVID-19 vaccines.
According to officials, vaccination is expected to be completed by June 10th. Officials say this is an important step for the reopening of the border and resuming the normal operations of freight and passenger traffic. According to a government decree, freight transport for all products and consumer goods was allowed to resume on February 23rd. However, foreign truck drivers have not been allowed to freely enter the country and are being isolated at special infection control zone.
Now let's take a look at Mongolia's current affairs.
To reduce traffic congestion, the governor of Ulaanbaatar issued a decree to temporarily change the office hours of Ulaanbaatar's public service offices. Starting on Monday, May 17th until August 31st, offices will open at 8 a.m. and close at 5 p.m. More than 35,000 employees work at 120 public service offices in the capital. It is estimated that 25,000 public servants use private vehicles to commute to work. City authorities expect the change in business hours to help decrease traffic congestion. Citizens' representative Horal members, district and Horo administrations, the office of the mayor of Ulaanbaatar, and the city's implementing agencies will adopt the temporary new business hours. Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of Mongolia to the Russian Federation Dava received professors and teachers of Mongolian language, literature, and history from Moscow universities. During the meeting, Ambassador Dava expressed his willingness to cooperate with lecturers and professors in the field of Mongolian studies. He thanked the educators for their knowledge and skills and provided information on activities that will be organized by the Embassy of Mongolia for the 100th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between Mongolia and Russia. During the meeting, the parties discussed a draft of guidelines for the Mongolia and Mongolians essay competitions for Russian students. The final guidelines and rules will be approved by the ambassador. The meeting was attended by professors and lecturers from the High School of Economics, Moscow State University, and Moscow State Institute of International Relations.
There are more than 110,000 people in Mongolia who are living with disabilities. Less than 30% of people living with disabilities are employed, and the rest depend on social welfare. People living with disabilities say that there aren't enough accessible work environments for finding gainful employment.
This is Ulaanbaatar, a resident of Selenge district. He is self-employed. He has skeletal system and supportive organ issues that impact 70 to 80% of his ability to work. But Bayer employs 3 people living with disabilities. In the future, he expects to provide jobs for 5 to 6 people. He noticed that it is important to create safe and accessible working environment for disabled people. For example, shared spaces and buildings should have wheelchair access ramps, accessible restrooms, and chairs and desks that meet safety requirements for disabled people.
Two people who use wheelchairs want to work for our company. However, the workspace conditions currently don't allow me to hire those people. Because I have a disability, there should be an able-bodied person to help them when they arrive to work and when they leave. They would have to ask people to help them enter the building. They might enter it for a couple of days, but it's hard to always ask someone for help. But if there was a more wheelchair-friendly and accessible working environment, it would become easier for people with mobility issues to become employed.
People who work in a safe and comfortable environment enjoy their work more, and their productivity increases. According to the Ministry of Labor and Social Welfare organizations, that provide jobs for people living with disabilities are eligible for tax benefits.
In the past, we trained people living with disabilities and then provided them with jobs. Now we're first recruiting people living with disabilities and then creating suitable jobs for them. Initially, we plan to employ 30 people living with disabilities in Ulaanbaatar city.
Ministry officials say that creating job opportunities for people living with disabilities will create sources of income and make them less dependent on social welfare.
Here are the currency exchange rates provided by Bank. And here's the weather forecast for the world's major cities. Well, that's all for today. Thank you for staying with us. We'll see you on Wednesday with more stories and updates. Have a nice evening. Goodbye.